Kia has revealed the all-new EV9 Concept, a 3-row all-electric SUV, and just like the Hyundai Ioniq 7 concept we just talked about in my previous video, this is a preview of a future production model from Kia and possibly the next all-electric Telluride. It also shares the same platform as the 7 concept, and the interior layout features a similar style as well. The concept is a 6-seater with 3 rows that you can configure and play around with in many different ways and layouts. But the exterior design is where they are completely different and unique, and that's what we're gonna focus on here in this video. Later, of course, we're gonna jump into Photoshop to analyze this design, what's going on here in the front, side, and of course the rear view. And what I want to do is compare this to the Ioniq 7 concept to show you the two different approaches to design that Hyundai and Kia is doing right now, and they're kind of leaving everyone in their dust, specifically Honda and Toyota. More on that later in the video. Before that, let's talk about the range here, because after all, it's a big, bulky looking electric SUV, but Kia says it actually is a lot more slippery than it might look like and promises a driving range of up to 300 miles, but there is no more information on the type of battery or electric motors. The concept is to further build on Telluride's success. It's a huge money maker for Kia, the Telluride, and they want to continue on that path, obviously, with an all-electric version, which this concept previews. It will be called the EV9 when it goes into production, and the size is very similar to the Telluride, but with a more unique design approach. Obviously, when you look at this thing, it's a lot more unique, a lot more branded than the Telluride, even though the Telluride is pretty strong in its identity as well, but this takes it to another step, another level, and the styling and the proportions that really hammers in the Kia DNA. We now have a digital trademark tiger face and new air vents in the front of the vehicle, which greatly improves the airflow, and that in turn improves the range. Another cool thing is that the top part of the hood vents acts as solar panels, and even though they might not produce a massive, huge amount of energy quickly, it's still a great idea when you're not close to a charging station, because when you have an EV, it's sort of anything helps. Anything that can regen or generate some electricity is a good thing. And of course, in typical EV fashion, the wheelbase here is longer than on the gas-powered equivalent in the Telluride, and that's thanks to the wheels, of course, being pushed out to each corner, have a battery platform which allows for the wheels to be pushed further out, so you have a longer wheelbase, but it doesn't necessarily have to be longer vehicle overall. There's not a lot of info on the powertrain here, but Kia says that the EV9 will have a driving range of, as I said, 300 miles and will be able to charge at up to 350 kilowatts. The only way to find out is to actually wait until it's in the hands of real consumers, because as we know, the estimated range and the real world range tend to be a little different when the cars actually come in the hands of the consumers and some real world use. It will most likely be equipped with dual electric motors for all-wheel drive, of course, since it's supposed to be more of an off-road SUV, and this would probably be the top of the line model, and a rear-wheel drive single motor version like in the EV6 could possibly work as a base model. On the inside, you'll find a 27-inch super widescreen display that will probably make it into production. However, there's still a lot that will be cut in the transition from concept to production in this case. So I want to show you, let's talk about the design here. Let's go into Photoshop and talk about the front view. So comparing both the Kia EV9 and the Ioniq Concept 7 down here in the bottom, I want to show you just how much fun these two companies have at the moment designing cars. These are two very different approaches to design, but they're also two very bold statements when it comes to hammering in identity of the two cars. So the Kia up here, what I love about this is just the geometric design, and what it shows me is that if you really think about the design and if you really put some effort into it, you can have a boxy design like this right here. Just look at all these beautiful chamfers here. You can have a design like this and still make it efficient as an EV, because remember, this is Kia. They're not going to sacrifice a lot of range in order to make a cool design, so they need to make those two work in combination with each other, and I think this looks really cool. It looks like it's a block that will not be very aerodynamic, but you have these vents right here, for example. I think these are the vents right here, and you also have some sort of vent down here, of course, this massive piece in the bottom, and all these vents are going to help increase the flow of this design going through the body itself and also of course around it. And I'm not a huge fan of these wheels, but at the same time they're very bold. It's a bold statement, and I like that they have some connection right here with these shapes right here to the overall body shape. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Hummer EV, specifically with these fenders right here, the shoulders in the front and the back right here. These kind of triangles or shelves that we have right there, it reminds me a lot of the Hummer EV, but they're a little bit more integrated here in the body, so they kind of melt a little smoother into the body than it does on the Hummer EV. It's a really cool design. I also like that they have blacked out A-pillars here. It makes it look like it's a visor design, almost like a Koenigsegg right here. And of course, these both companies, they play a lot with these LEDs, pixelated designs when it comes to the lighting designs. And I really love that. But look at the Kia up here and then compare it to the design approach of Hyundai down here. So you have this shoulder line right here. This is a lot more soft surfacing right here, soft and round. And just look at the treatment of the greenhouse here, for example. A proper example of the two completely different approaches to the proportions and styling of these two cars. So you have a very boxy shape for the Kia, but look at how Hyundai decided to go about this. You have a curvature from start to finish. There's not one straight line in this greenhouse, the top of the greenhouse and going into the A-pillar. And look at the front view here as well. I want to show you this. This kind of reminds me of, this is more of a geometrical design right here, a architectural approach to this front end right here. What this reminds me of, what this Ioniq Concept 7 concept reminds me of is these, when I was in Shanghai, I remember I saw these big skyscrapers with some massive advertisements on them, and it was all moving. I think it was LEDs inside the facade of the building or something like that. Really cool structures that had some message, some video on outside of the facade of the buildings, huge, stretching up to the sky. This is what it reminds me of. It's a very cool approach and a very innovative approach, both from these two companies, and I think they're leaving everyone in their dust. So let's have a look at the rear view here. Same thing here. You have a very different approach from the boxiness and the very angular approach of the Kia up here. As you can see, these taillights here reminds me a little bit of a Volvo, possibly. If I just looked at this piece right here, it could possibly be a Volvo, and the reason for that is we have this lighting following the shoulders and following the outline of the rear end, and on top of that, more Volvo design here is this line right here of the XC40, I believe it is, that has a similar design like that of the C-pillar. So this in combination with these lights, it gives me a little Volvo vibes, which is not a bad thing at all. But comparing the front headlights right here, the headlights to the taillights, I think the headlights, it feels like they put a little more effort into the headlights than they did right here in the taillights. These are not bad looking at all, that's not what I'm saying, but it doesn't have any of these pixelated cool like LEDs here, for example, like fading into the body or something like that we have in the front view, and I think that's kind of missing in the rear. I would love to see something like that to connect it with the front end of this design. Other than that, it's a cool concept. I hope they bring as much as possible of this concept into production. I doubt it's probably going to look a little different, but I think the main key lines, so the main fenders here, front and rear, I think these are actually going to stay for production. I really hope so, because what we've seen lately is, specifically from Kia and Hyundai, is they really focus on bringing out concepts that are very, very close to production. These are still 3 or 4 years away from production, so they might change a little bit more than, for example, the Ioniq 5 and so on, but it's still a very cool looking design, and it doesn't look too far off from production. If I were to choose between these two right here, I think I'm gonna go with the Ioniq down here. It has such a clean design, specifically from this rear end here. This taillight, it looks a little confused and undecisive in its approach to where the thickness is of the light and how it follows the body and where it's supposed to end. And this thing sticking in here halfway. You can see here that it doesn't really sit flush with the body either, so it looks like it sits a little bit bit outside of the body, which is not ideal, at least if you want to look at it from a quality aspect. And I really like this design here from Hyundai a lot more than I do, especially in the tail of the Kia. As I said, it's still a very cool design, two completely different approaches to the design and graphics. But if I had to pick one, I'm gonna pick the Hyundai, and that goes for the side view here real quick. You can see that the wheelbase here is different from these two. So we have 122 inches right here, and the Hyundai has 126, 4 inches wider here, or longer wheelbase on the Hyundai than we have on the Kia. And you can see that specifically when you look at it from a straight side view. The Hyundai just looks like a longer, more stretched out SUV than the EV9 Concept up here. So to sum it up, I think Kia and Hyundai are really crushing it right now when it comes to design and putting up concept that we know that we kind of can hope for going into production. So I think these would probably be good candidates to also be a very smooth transition from concept to production. And it makes me wonder, what exactly is Honda and Toyota doing at the moment? Yes, we have the BZ4X from Toyota, but it doesn't really have a lot of exciting design elements in it, and of course it's a Subaru as well, so it kind of dilutes the uniqueness for Toyota to have that model out. It's a cool looking design, but it doesn't have the level of design that we have right here, and innovation and brand identity like these two, Kia and Hyundai, are doing right now. And then we have Honda. They came out with the Honda E, a car which I absolutely love. I love the design of the Honda E. It looks like a very cute retro futuristic design, and it's a very cool approach to building a fun looking car on an EV platform. So those are the two models that I can think of. But if we look at Kia and Hyundai here, they just keep spitting out awesome concepts after awesome concept, and a lot of them actually are intended to go into production. So I think Honda and Toyota, they might have some work to do if they want to catch up with these two beasts of design at the moment.